Hey, hey, hey.
Hey,
How are you?
I'm good. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Bear with me one second. I think that uh huh. We're waiting for two others to join. Well, one, Ryan just sent us DM saying he's having a challenge. Not sure. Latoya wasn't in, so hopefully Christine's
Christine
getting.
she chatted with me. She's been chatting with me. She's been great.
She is great. I'm gonna just start because we are live and hope that Ryan and I don't know what's going on, but I'm not gonna play tech support. I'm gonna talk to you since we're on a live video right now. Hi, friend. Good to see you.
Good. How you doing?
I'm hanging in there. It's been a interesting beginning of the year. I'll chat privately. Now I'm not going on the live stream on some stuff here, but all good. Let me give you a little context, and hopefully we'll be joined by Ryan and Latoya. And if not, you and I can always talk all day long, I'm sure. But for context, we've got some live viewers. Most of this is for folks to watch later. This is the last session of a 2-day series of sessions, but we'll be adding more. We'll be we set up this platform to be live all year, actually. So rather than just doing a one-off, couple day sessions, we really wanted to create a space where we could do events and activities all year, and that networking could happen and organizations and companies could promote themselves. So I do want to give a shout out to our friends at Netroots Nation. They turned me on to this app a few years ago. We used it once, we tried some others, and we came back, and Eric asked me yesterday if we use this app because of them, and I said we did. So this is the same app that they use for their events. I know there's a ton of apps out there. Like I said, we've used a few others. But what I particularly like about it is the networking aspect of it, that people can come and go. They can watch the events, online live, or you can watch them after, but you can also connect with people one-to-one, and organizations can promote themselves. And so what we're really trying to do here, a little bit different. Folks know Gain Power. Here's Ryan. I don't know what was going on with you there. I was just saying I'm not going to pay attention. I'll trust Christine to figure it out. I'll introduce you both in a minute, but I was just trying to say what we're trying to do here. What we are doing here is, Gain Power is mostly known for our Career Center. That is our kind of most popular feature since we launched almost 4 years ago now. We've had over 5,000 employers use us. It's a little bit of an exaggeration because there's some that includes multiple peoples at some of the same organizations, but it's over 3,000 unique organizations, and across all 50 states. And no surprise to the two of you and others who use us, the organizations are a combination of campaigns and candidates, and everything from our presidential candidates down to city council races, consultants and vendors and services, progressive national nonprofits and local ones as well. New ones added daily, literally 2 just added even in the last hour. I was like, I have no idea who these groups are, where they're coming from. And even some official government offices. We've got folks who use us on the Hill, and state of New York uses us a lot. And so, and none of that's a surprise, because as we all know, as practitioners, folks move in and out of these spaces, right? You work for a campaign one day and you're working in an official government office the next, and consulting firm the next, and we all move around, maybe a union. All of us have done some of this work. But specifically, like I said, being known as a job board, people come to us to hire, and not surprisingly, they also come to us to ask for consultants, right? And this has been going on casually and formally for a while. And we finally said, we really need to create space. Our job board's not quite the right platform to do that, but we wanted to create a place for companies and vendors to be able to, offer and market their services and showcase what you do, and for us to create more content to talk about it as well, so that it becomes a little bit more accessible, so that both people who want to learn about working at the places learn, but also candidates and organizations can find the companies. I think it's hard. I don't know of any place where, there's a few niche networks, but I don't know of any place where someone who's looking to hire a pollster, a media firm, or even the data folks can go and find this in a transparent way. There's a few others, and I don't need to name them because y'all know who I'm talking about, but it's not meant to throw shade, but they don't share values. Let's just say that. They're not values based anyway. They tend to be bipartisan, and anyway, so that's sort of what we're trying to do on this platform. Is we're trying to create space where companies and organizations can showcase their work, and then have content like this to talk about the actual work, so that people understand even what it is. One of our missions at Gain Power is to I always say it's to demystify, democratize, and diversify. And demystify is to make it more transparent and accessible, and that helps us, I think, democratize and diversify. And I think that too often our work is closed behind, secret rooms, and some of us know where those are and some of us don't, and some of that's for good reason, for strategic reasons. We're not putting everything we do out into the internet so the other side sees what we're doing, but that makes it hard for folks who do share our values and who we want in our spaces to find it and to get in. And so what we're really trying to do is just make this a more open space, and also give space for folks to share what y'all do. So I've talked enough here. I want to have you to introduce yourself. I don't even know if y'all know each other, by the way. So you can introduce yourselves to each other, to the folks watching, and we may be joined, I hope we're joined by one other person. I don't know what her delay is, but Latoya Jones is supposed to join us, so she could pop in any second, and I hope she does, and we'll continue without her if she doesn't. But Jamaa, you came here first. I know you well, but others may not, so please introduce yourself.
Thank you so much. It's really great being here, Amy. Can you all hear me okay?
You're a little soft.
Okay, maybe I should lean up closer. Is better?
Definitely better.
Gotcha. My name is Jamaa Bickley-King. I am the Chief Solutions Officer at Target Smart. I have been in the progressive movement in political data and technology for over 2 decades now. As you can see with the beard, it's not just for show. I am, in fact, very, very old in political years. I have been doing a lot of innovative pieces. I've developed new technologies, and right now the main thing we're pushing out this year is we have 2 new innovations at Target Smart. One is that we have a DSP that references the voter file and all its targeting, and actually reporting on when people send out digital ads. We can tell you which voters you hit at the household level, the minimum, in some places, and depending on circumstance, the actual voter. And then also we developed some custom data-driven video, which allows you to use data to make a custom video that can basically be customized from a template video to be an individual people. And we're gonna Target Smart has always been, known as one of the preeminent organizations around data and political data specifically. We're now going to be moving into more digital offerings and services as a natural extension and evolution into what we're doing. The DSP and scene stuff is that we want to do it. We want to do stuff in an innovative way, things that we haven't quite seen in other places, to bring more options and tools to the table to the progressive movement. That's basically it, and I will give it to Ryan.
Well, nice to meet you, Jamaa, and good to be here. Thanks, Amy. I'm Ryan Irvin of Change Media Group. We are a paid media firm with a specialization in digital persuasion. So our expertise is diving deep in finding an audience for a campaign, and hitting them with the right message in the places where they're spending time. and very excited about Target Smart's new DSP. I think we might be one of the first agencies to use it, so we're excited to starting to dive in with the team there, and excited to use a great new tool that nobody else has really offered. And I've been doing this not quite 2 decades, but close. I think I really appreciate the 3 words that Amy used at the top here: demystify, democratize, and diversify. Those are really core to who we are as a firm, and 3 of the principles and values that we're continually striving for. Because we know that if we're bringing more people into the fold and we have a team that's really creative and diverse, that we're going to get the best outcomes for the values and the goals that a lot of us care about. So yeah, excited to be here.
So you guys have, oops, am I getting feedback? You know what? Hopefully that ends. I don't know why. Making sure I think I had us open on 2 browsers simultaneously. Anyway, that's better, or I hope it's better anyway. You guys really offer complementary services. We've had a few panels. We had one on fundraising, one on communications, more traditional, though we had some less traditional folks on the panel, and we just did one on field. And you know, I think okay, good, feedback's gone. For, you know, and I'll date myself more than both y'all. I've been doing this for almost 4 decades. That's I don't like to fully admit that, but I've seen a lot, you know, over that time, and we're really amazed at the evolution of the work that we all do, really, that has gotten a lot more sophisticated, a lot more creative, and entirely dependent on the data side. I think all of us, whether you're doing, as I do, mail, you're doing digital, field. Hopefully Latoya joins us and she'll talk a little bit about phones and texting, which is what she does. You know, and there's so much of the space. We originally called this session, or we were calling it just digital, and really digital is so many things, and data itself could have been its own session, and we will have more of these. Like I said, we're keeping this platform open in all year to have more conversation and more dialogue in here. But I want to, oops, I'm getting the feedback again. I don't know what's going on here. I don't know why. It's not, I don't have multiple platforms. Before I had a second browser open.
It's gone now. It's weird.
So weird. I really wanted to ask y'all about, like I said, this is both for folks who are just learning about what you do, but also learning about how all this work is done. How you, how you even just find clients, and like who do you work for? How do you decide who you work for? I assume in some cases they find you and you find them, but I want to talk a little bit about that process, and then dig a little bit deeper into the products. You've already mentioned them, but talk a little bit more about the services and how you offer them and how you work with folks. So I'll go back to you, Jamaa, a little bit for Target Smart, because I know there's a lot of products there actually.
We do have many products. I'll start with the first part where you're like, how do we find our clients and who are our clients in that conversation? Basically, when you're in the political data game, the data is heavily restricted. So there's only a certain set of group of people who can use it legally anyway. It has to be either a political campaign or a nonprofit or even sometimes a government entity. And that's how a lot of those things kind of shape out. There are some exemptions where you can use it in certain cases. Like I said, it isn't true, 100% true, like a company can't use it, but it would have to be for something civic engagement related, or like a corporate responsibility piece where it's like their C3 arm where they're like, we're nice people. We're not total shields for economy and, capitalism. We actually care. Maybe. So in that, there is these different things that they can do in terms of sales. So we're basically, for the most part, locked into the progressive movement and the Democratic Party and the blue side, and even possibly, and sometimes we call neutral 501c3 or neutral nonprofits. Those would be like your universities, your hospitals, and some of those entities out there that actually are basically C3 organizations, and even churches and faith-based organizations, which are largely in there. So those can be your customers. As we progress out and you pull out into a macro lens of what our work is, everybody in the progressive movement, when you're doing work in politics, is all dealing with counter-cyclical revenue, which means like, how do you make money when it's not a federal cycle and an off cycle? And so in that right now, and this is what you're seeing with a lot of nonprofits and their fundraising, and also what you see with as you're a vendor for an organization, as well as you're going to be a consultant, how do you make money and how do you survive when things are thin, which is like right after a presidential, right after a federal election, or even like, you know, sometimes where you're being boxed out in the community, or it's times of the year where people aren't doing contracts, which is like Q1 and Q2 of any cycle, you know, or even off cycle. And so in this conversation, figuring out how do you survive and you do your revenue streams and how do you re-arc your business is really important. And so while people do believe there's this myth like, oh, there's infinite money in politics, I mean, yeah, if you're a media vendor consultant, shout out to my boy Brian, it's not, you know, he's making billions of dollars, but it's like the pool is seen huge because they see the campaign finance reports. They see these people raising billions of dollars. And the assumption is it's like 2 or 3 consultants and they're doing, you know, getting all the money, when it's actually really not that true, when it's cut across like so many different spaces, so many different levels of politics at the federal, state, and local level. Then on top of that, the C3, C4 conversation chops it up even more. And the firewalls legally chops up even more. There's all these different things. So after it's all said and done, you know, you see that they raised all this money and it got absorbed even to the party staff, and HR. It gets really small really quickly. And I'm not saying we're pleading poverty when you see that there's $4 billion in politics on a presidential. I'm saying that if you're going to go into this business or you're trying to engage with other companies there, have an understanding that when you see $4 billion in the presidential, 10% of that is not going to you. That is absolutely not going to happen. It is going to be a very small subset of a piece of a part of a contract, and hopefully you can go ahead and strap them all together. I'm not saying there won't be somebody who's going to become a millionaire this year. I'm pretty sure there is, but do understand the infrastructure contacts needed to get that done are astronomical, and all those people who making those $1 million have spent the last 4 years making sure that happened. And so just want to have some clarity, let them understand. I want people to have a true vision of what's out there. I'm not saying you don't try to do this and we do want you there, but do have a sobering understanding of what is possible and how this thing is done. I hope I discussed that part pretty well. I know there was a second question, but I wanted to wait in case you had something else.
That was some good advice. It's good knowledge putting down there.
Just to like extend off of that too, I mean, there is a lot of money in politics and it's growing. But like, you know, over the last 4 or 5 years, Ford Motor has spent between $2 and $3 billion a year on advertising. That's about what will be spent this year, or is projected to be spent. I bet it's going to be more in the presidential.
20 billion.
What's that?
20 billion is being projected to be spent.
I just saw a different projection that was lower. But
I'll show you 2 different ones. But I will show you
this week who said that. So even at that rate, you know, there are a lot of other industries that spend a lot more on advertising and paid media. And I think I say that just to say, as an entree to the fact that there are a lot of big advertisers and paid media and sort of the infrastructure around some of these industries that they are selling products year round and they have a feedback loop year round. Cars, consumer packaged goods, all these other industries. And we live in a very, very different industry. You know, somebody described it to me once as elections are a little bit like if McDonald's and Burger King ran ads against each other. There was one day where everybody voted and then only one company got to sell hamburgers for the next 2 years. It's a very, very different thing. And so to one of your questions, Amy, without that feedback that people have, that feedback loop in other industries, I think referrals are the big source of business for us. And I think that goes to trust, because we don't have a day in and day out track record of saying like, oh, Amy's won 111 elections this year, right? Like you have people say, I've worked with Amy 3 or 4 times. Each time she was nuanced, she was strategic, she did a really great job, and she will help you win. And so I think because we don't have that same feedback loop as other industries, so much of it is built on trust and referrals and getting to know people and really diving deep on the tools that folks offer. And so in terms of I'll pause there because I don't think Jamaa answered the full set of questions, and I don't want to let him finish.
There was a second half of the question, and I forgot what it was. If you could remind me, I'd really appreciate it.
I both asked how you find people and people find you. I think that was one part, right? So, and I know that it both. I mean, certainly for most of us, it's some very loud people in my house. It works both ways, right? You're both searching for folks to work with, and people do find you. So, just talk a little bit more about that process.
It's a little bit different from Target Smart when, like, you're the main vendor for the Democratic Party, which means like you work significantly with the party and its party adjacent entities. So like in order for them to kind of like all kind of been going from seeing the same thing, understanding each other and understanding how to and share goals, having the same data is really important. And having standardized data is really important. And then having standardized modeling analytics is very important. And I say this because people, you're a known quantity, you are the main vendor for an organization that has hundreds of thousands of people all over the country who regularly engage with your data. It is helpful when they migrate over to other nonprofits and other things, so they go do it. And I don't want to go out here and say like, oh man, that Target Smart stuff, it sells itself. Not so much. There's still like a lot of conversations you need to have, but I would be lying to say that we don't have an intrinsic advantage because our anchor customer, for the most part, is the Democratic Party nationally. And then also we have strong partnerships with the ASDC, which is the Associated State Democratic Chairs, which also gives us an additional competitive advantage. Because of that, there are only 2 entities in the country that can compel any state or city or county to update their voter file at any moment, and that is the RNC and the DNC. They're only 2 people, the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. And if you are not, in many places, if you're not one of those people asking for it, they'll tell you to go jog on and just head out, whatever, and they'll just ignore you. But when it's a party person or official, especially a state party person, they find a way to make these things happen because they know that there are implications, and these are the people who are the main consumers of voter file information. And so in that, so Target Smart has been very helpful in that partnership, such that they get incredibly frequent updates for lower costs, which is a competitive advantage that is known in the progressive community. So if you want frequent updates, if you want to get it for cost, because there is no cost of acquisition, which is usually, I think like 10 years ago, it might have been $45,000 a state just for people to ingest data, purchase it, and then normalize it. That became so cost prohibitive for a reason why there aren't a lot of people who come into the space. For something that is technically legally should be free. It's like, this is a product of government. It's the people's information. It should, but it is an absolute disaster from everywhere. And so once you now have a reputation like Target Smart does to do that, people seek you out. And because there are very few people in that space, you can't even get it. There's like, maybe you could probably, there on one hand, there are 5 actual dedicated voter file vendors. Only 2 of them are considered to be the allies of the progressive movement. That makes it so like there's not a lot to go. So it's like, unlike my friend Ryan here, he has to like, there is a glut of people who believe there are digital people who can do all this work and that I can do the ad stuff. Whereas with the data stuff, it's like, look, it's me as Catalyst. Y'all just make a choice. Coin flip it up, figure it out. I'll be right here. You know what I'm saying? And there have been other people who tried to insert into the space to quickly realize just how hard it is. And it's not easy, and that they really mess it up. And we're talking about Silicon Valley titans and quote unquote geniuses who all come into our space and totally shit the bed. These guys have never been able to make it, and they come regularly in cycles. The last huge wave of them was during COVID, and we saw really brilliant people who have made billions of dollars in technology leave with the proverbial shoelaces holding up their pants because they got their ass kicked by people who are like literally been doing this for 10 years, who got their master's in trumpet from Northwestern, but committed to the progressive movement because they actually know data and they like committed to doing political data for over a decade. That's basically what happened.
I was going to say, you and I could probably, and there's not too many others, but could, and maybe should someday actually write a book about all this, because, you know, I was hired by the DNC back in really ended 2002, post McCain-Feingold, going into 2003 to build the first national voter file. Because at the time there actually were more voter file companies, right? There were people who only had states. So you had to go to one vendor for Florida and another vendor for Michigan and another vendor for California. California is still a little bit funky, as we all know. So technically maybe 3 companies, but you know, anyway, you know, and yeah, anyway, but the evolution of what has happened with data, and where it's housed and how it's used and how it's built and who has access and how do you access and what you do to it has been really pretty amazing to watch. Yeah, and it's not the stuff for folks who come in who are newbies. We have seen some folks enter the space, but it's also, and again, I think this is part of this conversation, or part of our goal anyway. It's like, if you are new to the space, whether you're new because you're running for office for the first time, or you're, you know, working for some independent expenditure PAC or union, or, you know, again, you're just not just young, but maybe haven't, it's not real transparent how to navigate, right? Not just how to access, how, you know, I've had plenty of candidates that I've worked with. They have no idea. I had a client this morning, again, no idea how to get, you know, they want to do an in-bank expenditure, no idea how to get the data, no idea if they have to pay for it, no idea if they, you know, what they pay for, who they pay for, you know. I, without naming who it was, you know, I said, look, I can get the data for you and you could pay us to get it and we could get it, but that's not probably the best way for you to get. The best way for you maybe to, I don't know, Join America Votes, or, you know, or, right. And just, again, the layers to all that, because it isn't just about where is the data, but how do you get access, and where, you know, how do you collaborate? How do you decide? And there's so much more to this than not just where physically it is, right? But how you decide, you know, who you're talking to and who you're communicating with, hopefully isn't happening in a vacuum, right? And those of us who do this work, it's, you know, can help you figure that out. Help, not always have all the perfect answers. Do you want to chime in more on this, Ryan?
Sure. I'll speak to sort of differences. As Jamaa said, he's a part of a duopoly. And so it's great business. And ours, you know, our space is not as much. That said, you know, it is, Jamaa was describing the cycle, and it goes from there being a glut of firms and capacity to being a shortage, you know, each year, each cycle. And we all see that, and we all put in extra hours and hire a lot of extra people, contractors, to try to do the work that needs to be done for folks. But I think on your question of how to get business, I mentioned referrals. I also think, you know, Amy, you and I just talked about this recently, but I think it's important, whether you're trying to find a job or whether you're a consultant trying to find work, is to really think hard about what you want to do. So if you want to be in the ballot initiative space and make an impact right away with an election, you know, do you want to work on choice? Do you want to work on economic issues or healthcare? And I think when it comes to candidates, you know, it is a luxury sometimes to be able to make some values decisions. But I think people who really care, who are public servants, who want to do it for the right reasons. That's the thing that's important to me. And so once you find folks who sort of meet some of the parameters you've come up with, try to meet them and network and find people who know those people so that you can do the impactful work that's really values aligned for you. It's a different thing in this industry than some other industries. And I think it also comes through when you genuinely care and when you want to work with people who genuinely care. We had somebody else's thoughts there.
Someone's upsetting my dog's hair. Forgive me. Like, you keep talking for a second.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of elements that go into the conversation of how to get more work and things like that. But I think the really core baseline thing and lesson that I've learned over and over again is that referrals are your best source of new business, and meeting people, networking with people, understanding the tools that others are offering, I think is a really, really critical element. To Amy's point about voter files, it's always been advantageous to me to be curious about what's going on in mail, what's going on in data, how is texting changing. I think if you're really well versed in all of the tools and companies that are out there, you can be even more helpful to the folks you help in terms of connecting the dots for people and helping demystify some of those upfront decisions.
My dog just calmed down, I think. Our friend Kermit here just asked a question. Where do I get the registered voters list from? I'm going to let Jamaa, you answer that question because it's, the short answer is probably you, but.
Well, a registered voter list, you call Target Smart and we will set you up. But basically you can get it from, technically it is, you're able to get it if you're part of a party, nonprofit, a registered organization that can legally acquire it. You can get it yourself, but I'll let you know, a raw voter file looks like stir-fried shit. It is the craziest thing you'll ever see in your life. It won't be normalized. The addresses will be crazy. People's names are crazy. The element of data hygiene you need to do to get a voter file so it's workable is incredibly, incredibly huge and very, very difficult. That was where the understanding for a lot of these people who come in from other spaces as they try to do this realize it's really, really difficult, where it literally takes decades to figure it out on top of it. And that's before you even get to an analytics conversation, because what people don't understand is that race is not on the file everywhere. It won't have the accurate age information everywhere. It won't have the NCOA information doesn't always get to the registrar, and that needs to be done. And that's literally the federal government saying this person has moved from here to here, and it does not automatically update the registration. A lot of people assume that, but that's not the case. And that's actually a mechanical process that has to be done along with other stuff, including fixing geocodes and all these other places, just so that it works with our technology and our resources on top of that. Then on top of that, there's a phone match that has to be done on top of that and all these other pieces. I know these guys like, hey, man, I get the list. I know you didn't want all that stuff. I'm just trying out there because I know a lot of people are going to say, I don't need to pay for it. I can just get it myself. And I'm like, sure, go ahead, try, knock yourself out. But it's going to be difficult and it will be crazy if you can get it at all. But basically talking to Target Smart and or Catalyst, we will go ahead and we'll set you up, but you must be associated with an entity that can legally have it. That is a very, very big thing. And then on that, you say what geographies you want. Do you want city, county? Do you want congressional districts, state legislative districts, multiple states? Then there are things that you can sell that comes in so many different products, everything from an analytics install, which is basically like the kitchen sink long tail data, like here's the name, their age, their mobile number, all this other information down there. And there's even some restricted information that we do not give out that is mainly because the technology has decided that you shouldn't use that, like emails. We used to sell emails. We don't do it anymore because of all of the emailers and spamming and all the filter boxes. If you give out somebody's email, it can get filtered out and it actually kills the ability for that emailer to work because it'll get blacklisted. And that's all the new level of technology doing that. And we're seeing similar things on mobile. Shout out to us because we put your mobile phones on the voter file as standard. as a way to like, okay, here's another way to engage it. And then easily in predictable fashion, everybody decided that we're all going to get into texting, which I call the introverts canvassing tool that just doesn't work as well as you want it to be, but everybody is abusing that privilege. And sometimes it's starting to see some level of diminished rate return, but I still think it could be effective. But just let you know that that's another reason why you should use it. But having a voter file just isn't enough. You have to have a good program, and you have to have people who know how to use it to get the true out of it. And actually understanding how to use and integrate data correctly, purchasing it isn't just enough. And hopefully you'll have a vendor that will help you understand how to use it appropriately and point you to programs so that you can do it, because everybody, at the end of every presidential, there will be some crazy news article that said this person won because of this one thing. It's total and absolute bullshit. It's never been true, but it's going to happen. And people will hone in on that one thing, and they're going to over index toward that and crowd it and thinking this is all I have to do to win. In Obama, it was analytics. In Trump, it was psychographic bullshit that didn't really happen. But you can basically set your clock to it that they're going to say this one tech thing was the thing they did.
Pretty much going to be AI. Can't we already agree that AI is going to cost us the election or win us the election right now?
They're going to say that, but the AI stuff is dumb as dog shit. Just trust me on it. I've like looked under the hood on the AI thing, and it's like ridiculous. I talked to some OG AI guys, and they said nothing has changed in AI technology in over 3 decades. The only reason why we're seeing a move in AI is because the hardware got better. There's been no new coding. It's all matrix math, still like it was. It's linear algebra in really big data sets. The only thing that's happened is the hardware has gotten so powerful because of the crypto bullshit that now that they can go ahead and have new parallel processing. So anytime you come there and say, I got a chat GPT thing that does it, it's bullshit. And most of the stuff that's a new app or tool is a GPT API call dressed up like a tool, and they haven't even added any new coding on it. Now, there are some things that could help in our space better if it was automated by AI, like scanning in like ballots with handwriting and figuring out what it is would be awesome. But they're not using that for that. They're using like, what if we all had a really cool email that somebody sent that gives money better because it uses AI? And I'm like, this is so stupid. I want out of here right now. I'm sorry. I've been in a lot of those calls lately, and it's been like parade after parade after grifter bullshit. Like clearly your NFT empire crashed and burned, and you're saying this is the next thing that you're going to get on. I am off that train. I'm sorry.
Well, like it or not, it is definitely, I will say the thing that has changed at least is the accessibility of it, right? I think that's what's really changed. To your point, it's been around for a long time, but it wasn't accessible for the average user to be able to even touch it, let alone do anything with it. So I do think we're going to see, and we are seeing, all sorts of crazy ass use cases, most of which is just silly, but some of it has potential. I think, I don't know. I'm not all there on it one way or the other yet. I'm just happy that it helps me do better spell checking. That's about all I can tell for it, and the Google searching's getting, a little bit better, but, I didn't mean to go off on an AI tangent. I mean, we could, but that's probably a different session. I think you touched on Stephen's question, but I do want to make sure his question's answered. And I think, Jamaa, that's still for you. And then I've got questions, Ryan, I want to ask you too. And it looks like, all right, that's a different question from Kermit. But do you want to tackle, I don't know if you see the question, I'll say it out loud. Just how in terms of hiring in the data tech realm, how much of it is purchasing access to established platforms, and how much of it is hiring people to develop solutions to a particular case needs? It's a good question. It's a complicated answer, probably.
I'll let Ryan. I've talked a lot, and I want Ryan to speak.
Oh no, I was trying to understand Stephen's question in terms of like, Stephen, do you mean like how much of hiring in data tech is like maintaining current systems versus like building new systems? Am I rephrasing that correctly? I do think Jamaa's a little bit better suited to answer since they do more of that than we do.
I've done a lot of this. I think I understand his question. He's saying in terms of hiring in data tech realm, how much of the purchasing access to establish platform and how much of it is hiring people to develop solution particular needs. It's like, is there an off-the-shelf software product that we use, or are you taking people to build to suit? And that, I think, is the question that they're asking. And I'm hoping that's accurate. If not, I apologize in advance, because I'm going to totally dive in on that dichotomy. So basically, it depends on the size of the organization and its mission. It's like everybody knows about the van, and every presidential, the innovations on the van usually comes from the president saying like, yo, this is cool and all, but I needed to do all this other stuff as well. I need to talk to this thing and this thing and this thing. And that's where like the development comes in. And so there's an engineering class of people in progressive politics who do the data engineering and the digital piping to get that work. And in the history of politics, where there are so many off-the-shelf things like, you got Hustle with Latoya's thing, you got NGP Van and their stuff, and now they add Every Action. These are the established off-the-shelf tools, and to a certain level of sophistication and a certain level of geography, it's totally fine. But once you get to like, it needs to do all this other shit, now you need a set of engineers to fix it and do A, B, and C. And a lot of that, where you bribe people, hiring people to develop solutions, comes in on that. And the biggest thing that always, I shouldn't say always, but it hasn't really been always, is the conversation around ETL. And that's export, transfer, and load. It's basically moving data from this tool over to this tool. And that's basically, everybody is so upset at the van because it has such an archaic code base that literally hasn't changed since people were programming in Access, and then had been arced over to new code bases and APIs just so it can touch with modern technology. And this has had blessing and curse for a very long time. And so that is where the tension is in the question you're talking about, is that while Van currently enjoys this huge thing as being the tool of choice, but it doesn't talk well with other technology, so much so that there were companies out there that actually built a whole product line and did very well with moving data between back and forth. This was a Civics. Is that the one? The one that had console and platform and whatever. And people would go ahead, and it's basically the Rosetta Stone, like had one API to Van, and then they had a really good API set so people can plug everything into that. So they're like, nobody wants to fuck with a handshake process with NGP Van because it's like a total pain in the ass. They had one tool that did that well, and then everybody else had all these other tools to plug into that one so it could filter stuff back and forth in a more understandable way. And you can kind of get all the Tableau reporting, all of your SQL pulls, and all that stuff. So you can pull the data in a way that doesn't come out either as a flat text file or their existing report structure, which is basically counts and crosstabs, and that's it. There is a newer generation of tools out there with OpenField, Votivate. There was some attempts to make other ones that totally shit the bed, which was like Helm. And I don't know what the hell Civitech is doing. Hopefully they'll figure their life out, and some others. But those are the ones that are out there. So right now, Votivate is out there, up and coming. OpenField is now at the market and doing it. And they were built on basically like, how do I make an organized life better? But they're not trying to do what everybody else does. And this is the biggest problem. People developing technology that's most profitable versus what we mostly need. And what we need is better canvassing tools to knock doors. What we don't need is another motherfucking fundraising app or another fundraising thing, because that has the most cost-effective mean where they can go ahead. They want to all be like ActBlue, like, oh, you got a donation? I will take a percentage. Thank you very much. And then go ahead and walk away to the bank, and all they did is just transact money. We don't need that. I know you think you can make a lot of money, and that's true, but we don't fucking need that. We know we need better ways to contact voters. We need more that aren't saturated. We need ways to engage people so that people aren't abusing that stuff like SMS text and digital and email. We need more high-touch models. We need better racial models, which there is no money in, which is where the fight is going to be over the next 20 years, and figure out who's Black, who's Latino, who's Asian American, and what is the sub-ethnicity, what are they talking at the home, and what their country of origin. The least sexy things are things we need most, and that is the conversation where all these developers and special use case scenarios, that's where those coders should be in, but they're not going to be put on that. They're going to be put on Thank God, no more relational apps, because we spent $200 million on that shit and not one of them motherfuckers is still around. And that was the craziest thing I ever seen. I'm sorry, I got strong opinions. I think that's probably
really. I was like, tell us how you really feel.
Yeah, I'll digress and let other people talk. But yeah, that's what I believe you're asking me. And I apologize, Stephen, if I said it incorrectly.
I have one take on this, which is just that I think that as the space here has evolved, there has been a little bit of a trend of working with and asking companies to do a little bit more of this. And I think for a while, there was an effort by presidential campaigns to build technology. And I think that probably wasn't a good use of presidential campaign capacity. I think there's a lot of existing talent and knowledge out there. And so having people with the know-how who have used Civis as an example, who know how things connect and what's been tried, is a good starting point. I know a lot of people get into our space and are ready to shake things up, but I think there's a balance there.
You look, every single presidential, there's going to be this person who is a brilliant Silicon Valley person. They're going to come in. They're going to have golden resources. They're going to get in good with the president. That means they're going to have no barriers to entry. They're going to build a quote unquote enter this thing killer. It will shit the bed. The history of Silicon Valley coming into politics is so bad that I've only seen 1 out of 100 to ever make a dent, and that was Organizer. When Mark and Jim in the van said, why would anybody want a mobile canvassing app not on an Apple phone? And he was like, yo, you need it on Android. And he said, no, we good. And he built it on Android. That was the first and last time I ever seen somebody build something that we need that we couldn't get anywhere else. And here's the deal. When I say that those people from Silicon Valley failed, we're talking Mars rover failures that crater into Mars that you can't even see it anymore. It is like they shit the bed so bad. I have seen, like, what was it, Groundworks, which was like Eric Schmidt and all these other people, and they burned over $60 million on building what was like a BSD killer. The thing didn't work. You know why? Because nobody connected the website to the software. I thought it was the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. There's a long history. Narwhal was another one. Houdini, Obama, Narwhal, Obama 2.
Houdini.
It's like, yeah. Houdini was like, we're going to build a way so you can go ahead and put all your precinct information by text. Nobody bought the port space correctly. And literally the first pool that everybody was supposed to enter in shut the whole thing down. That there was like a mushroom cloud over the Obama headquarters in Chicago. That shit was a disaster. And these were brilliant people. These people were like,
you remember bottled lightning?
Yes, lightning in a bottle. That was another one. That was like this, and that was Kerry, I think it was, or Clinton. I forget what, but
that was Kerry.
I guarantee you, there's like, you can just go down the list. They will come here. They're gonna be like, I got this, man. I'm gonna figure it out. The last one was with Hillary. I think it was they got a bunch of Columbia professors to figure out how to like find people, and they're like, oh, this shit is easy. We good. Literally 2 weeks in, he was like, yo, man, this is hard. I don't think we'll be able to get this done. This is like a professor who was like number 15 and whatever that stuff is. These are brilliant people. And here's the same, they make all the same mistake. Politics is a vocation, is not a white collar profession. That's why we measure your ability to do this work in cycles. It's like being a plumber. It's like, yeah, and just like a plumber, like you would not get the guy who had a Nobel Prize in hydrodynamics to build a house and put all the plumbing in. Yes, he's a brilliant person and knows how water flows. He don't know fuck all about how to put together a toilet. It will be a disaster. Let that man do his. The guy who has a Nobel Prize in physics, who knows about like superconductors, cannot do the wiring in your house. Get a master electrician. He got you. So I'm like, this is the problem we have. They assume that just because they are brilliant people who have pushed the bounds of their space, that they can easily go over to something that actually is incredibly hard, that you need to have a lot of reps in. And I'm not saying that people from Silicon Valley can't migrate over to this space, but they have to do the work and they have to understand it, and they got to do their time saying, okay, how is this working? Because I can tell you right now, the stuff that we do in data technology is the dumbest fucking shit you've ever seen. And we know that, but it is governed by two things: campaign finance law and politics. We know it's a stupid plan, but we can't do it because the politics and campaign finance law forces us to make these dumbest dog shit decisions, and that we know are stupid. And they come in and see it and they assume that we wanted it this way. We're like, no, this was actually really stupid, but this is what we got. And we were hoping that they will come up with a better way within those confines, and they totally suck at it. I'm sorry, another one of my rants. I'm gonna be quiet.
Well, and I mean, I'm not going to go. We only have a few minutes left here, and I want to stay on topic, but a relevant tangent that is probably a really important conversation for a different day. You know, because you talk about the laws, is you also have the pushback of the laws that, you know, on voter disenfranchisement and people attempting to stop people from, and the data flows related to that, and so. Again, that's a whole different topic, but it's really hard because people don't want this information to get out. They don't want us to be smarter. They don't want us to be better. They don't want it to be easier. They don't want it to be more accessible. They want to make it harder and more difficult and more challenging. And there's some legit, you know, privacy issues and all sorts of stuff that I think is super important for consumers and voters and citizens to care about. But beyond that, that's not what motivates people for trying to keep this information private, right? So, oh my gosh, so many tangents here. So many tangents. Ryan, just because you've been sitting quiet a little bit, we've like, I mean, I'm curious. Well, actually, and I do want, just because I want to hear the answer on Kermit's question about the independent candidates. But, you know, as we look at this cycle, and, you know, we briefly touched on AI and data. There is a lot of innovation happening. How do you see, like, what innovation do you see happening that's legitimately helpful? And what do we need to do better? You know, how do we, because we do need to communicate with people. And the reality is people are online. That's where they are. I'm a mail consultant, although God bless U.S. Postal Service. I do good old-fashioned print, and it still works, and it still gets delivered every day. But digital is clearly where most people are getting their information. So how do you see this cycle shaping up and being a little bit different, or maybe it's not? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's a really good question, Amy. And I do think the transition to digital has meant in the corporate space there's a little bit less mail. And so it actually makes your line of work a little more effective, right? You don't have quite as cluttered a mailbox to be in. But yeah, I think your question is about innovation, and I liked the plumber comment a few minutes ago, because I think we have been exploring and using and testing AI tools a lot. And I think that the real innovations this cycle are going to be taking some of these things that move the needle a little bit. You know, your example, Amy, copy editing, tweaking language to make it more approachable to a broader subset of people, and not writing at a 12th grade reading level rather than a 4th or 5th grade reading level. So you're bringing in more people. Video workflows and making video editing better and faster. And so I think, you know, a lot of the innovation that I see in terms of our space this cycle is going to be about bringing together tools to make them work more efficiently, and thinking critically about how tools can connect better. So, like, a good example is with Jamaa and Target Smart's new tool. I think we're going to get a lot more data back on people, on who's spending time and who you can actually hit with streaming TV and pre-roll video ads. And, you know, for those folks who you're not hitting, like, how do you need to think about those folks? How can you hit them? And I answered that in sort of a sloppy way, but I think the two big things are, like, really using innovations and workflows to put out more content faster. And then the second is connecting different tools and using them in thoughtful and critical ways. I think part and parcel to everything Jamaa just said was, like, there's no there's no like unicorn, solution. There's no one thing that's going to solve all problems. And so I see innovation as like the groups of people who can who can be effectively organized and bring tools together to make things work better.
Jamaa, I want you to answer that independent vote, the presidential, was it presidential? Who asked someone asked the question. I want to make sure it gets answered about
follow-up question. With all these independent candidates running, are their respective parties allowed to access the voter data you're referring to?
Independent candidates running for president? No, we are, because of Target Smart, and even I think to a certain degree, a lot of the tools that have contracts with the DNC, part of them being your anchor client and winning that is saying that this technology will not be used by people who will run against the Democratic Party. A lot of people are going to say, oh my God, that is not fair. I think that there are other people out there that can try and do that. But I also got to add that for third party candidates, and this is just me talking and nobody else, it's like the idea that you're going to try and make your insurgent as a third party during the presidential year when literally the Republicans and the Democrats are at the height of their power, at the height of their resourcing, is the dumbest shit I ever heard in my life. It's like I'm watching these Green Party people who I love. I like your energy. God bless you. But the idea that you're going to make a move to change America when the Republicans and the Democrats will jointly have, I don't know what they say, how many billions of dollars to do their work, and not go ahead and make a play for Montana in an off year, you know what I'm saying, where it got like 50,000 voters. Dude, that's your play. It's going to cost you maybe like $600,000. You know what I'm saying? You can make a game of it. You can do a dent. You know what you can't do? You can't get over 270 votes all across America as somebody who is battling the statistical margin of error. You know what I'm saying? It's just not going to happen. And I'm not trying to say that people can't do it, but the amount of money and resources to go ahead and take a value, because even a lot of people see like, oh, they got tens of billions of dollars. That doesn't even count for the stuff that isn't there. All the infrastructure, offices, people, staff who are volunteer party people, to overcome that hump means you're probably going to need to have easily twice to maybe 3 times the money of what the party candidate is going to have. And that's just to get into the game. That's not to win. That's like, hopefully you will get maybe 5 to 10%
on a ballot.
Exactly. The idea that somebody's going to do that, and that's why it frustrates me. I'm like, yeah, you can try. And so when they come to us and say it's not fair because we only do work Democratic Party, means like you're not even thinking about this the right way. You know what I'm saying? You have gone to step Q. Everything under that from A, that's where you need to be. And the idea that your strategic plan to change America is to go ahead and take on both parties when they literally are going to be swimming in money and resources and bodies is the dumb. It means to me like you're not serious about this shit. And you can say something to me, I'm like, you're easily an idiot, and I can ignore you and be okay about it.
The only third party I'm okay with is our friends over at the Working Families Party, because they know how to do this. They know how to do this, and they do it as allies and as partners, not as disruptors and spoilers.
It is
strategic. They're disruptors, but in a different way.
No, they're just strategic about it because what they realize that they shouldn't take it on. They're trying to co-opt the infrastructure. They do fusion balloting in New York. They're doing similar stuff in other states. They're like, do I want to fight the party or just want the party to do better on my issues? And how do I do this so that I can be the rebellion in service to the empire? And I'm like, this is really smart. What they're doing makes a whole lot of sense. Yeah. They are far enough apart so they can't get co-opted and be told what to do, but they're close enough that they can major league influence the party to do the things that they would like them to do. That is the smartest thing I've ever seen in my life. More people should be doing stuff like that. I'm like, it's cool because, and also, you know what they don't do? They don't try to take on the party during the presidential years. I'm seeing them going to down ballot races. They're doing it in off years. They're trying to build a bench. I'm like, this is smart. What they're doing is totally dope. But unfortunately for them, we can't sell to them either. We ain't selling nobody independent. Even though there's fusion balloting in New York, and then many times they're seeing the same thing.
I didn't know that. That's new
database,
information. So you can't sell to Working Families Party.
No. Now, there is some talks where they may have to figure it out, but it is well above my pay grade and well above my political stature. I think that they're trying to have that conversation because, like I said, there's a lot of places in America where they're huge allies.
And so absolutely.
But here's the thing, just like a party everywhere else, they can be really great in New York. I guarantee there's a couple of states out there where they just straight out fighting it out every day. I don't have any knowledge, but being a party person as I am, we do that even within the Democratic Party. So I absolutely guarantee we're doing it to people outside of the party. So yes, absolutely.
We are already past our time, and I'm mindful that y'all are busy folks with probably other calls or family obligations or whatever y'all need to do. But I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and I'm really grateful for you both taking time to be with us today. You've inspired me on about 3 or 4 other tangents I want to go and talk. And I think, look, this is the kind of stuff that is not accessible enough to folks. So I'm really grateful for your real candor and your honesty and transparency. Because like I said, this is not the kind of information that people have easy access to on the regular, so grateful for that and appreciate you and hope y'all come back.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here, and I apologize if I get fired for anything I said, but
I'm not too worried about that. I don't think you should be either.
I mean, they hired me when they knew me, so like they knew this was going to happen.
Jamaa, it's nice to meet you.
Pleasure as well, Ryan. I look forward to working with both of y'all.
Good to see you
both.
both.
Everybody, hit me up if y'all need anything.
Cheers.
Cheers. See ya.
Thanks all.